From formation to taxation, covering inflation, temptation, high expectations, and that dreaded stagnation, we bring to you Hip Nation.
Welcome to episode 14 of Hip Nation. We're calling this episode Family Run Businesses, and we got a really cool guest in today, as well as a super awesome co-host today. And I'll get to that in a minute. So I would like to let you guys all know that if you access the podcast via our website, which is graphicallyhip.com/podcast, you will see links to the books of all of our guests. And if you purchase those books on Amazon via those links, we get a kickback. And those links are usually updated the day of the episode airing. So you can check that out. We also have a donate button at the end of every episode description. So if you're like listening within Spotify or Apple Podcasts, there will be a brief description of what the episode's about. Under that, there's a link to click to donate. So if you find the episode valuable to you in any way and you wish to help us contribute to the podcast, we would truly appreciate it. And we also have a follow button. And Holly, who's my co-host today, has had issues finding that follow button on the Apple podcast. So to find it, you just click the three dots up in the top right corner of the app, I think, or the plus sign, and that's your follow button on Apple Podcasts. And lastly, I just need to let everybody know that we now have an application to be on the show. And you can find that on our website. Again, graphicallyhip.com/podcast. There's a form you can fill out right on the website. If you think you want to be on the show, fill it out and we'll get back to you. So without further ado, I will pass it off to my awesome co-host Holly to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. Thank you again, Sarah, for having me back. I'm really looking forward to co-hosting today. So again, I am Holly Tyel, franchise partner with Modern Pure Air, also known as Holly the Great. And super excited to be here today. Excited to be co-hosting the episode with Cam Betts from Betts Electric here in Penticton. I've known Cam for a few years. I believe I met Cam probably first through JCI. Yeah, met Cam through JCI. Look up to him a lot in the way he runs his business, and his business is very well established in town. Mm-hmm. I believe Cam has taken home Young Business Leader of the Year a couple of years ago.
What, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew that.
Yeah, and he was my direct competition for the last year when I took it home. So he is...
Well-deserved win, by the way. Well-deserved win.
Thank you. He is well-respected in our community here, and I'm looking forward to today. So, Cam, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
It's been a while since we tried to get you in here, and you are a very, very busy person. So tell us and our listeners who you are, what you do, what you own, all the things.
All the things. Yeah, my name's Cameron Betts. I was born and raised in lovely little Penticton here. Went to high school here, grew up, moved away for college. I went to university at the University of Victoria for a couple of years there, and moved back to Penticton in 2013. And it seems like the last close to 9 years have flown by. Lots have happened, and it's been exciting. And at the end of the day, just super happy to be here, be in Penticton, and have a great business to work at every day.
Absolutely. And since the title of this episode is Family Run Business, how many generations has this thing been going?
I am the fourth generation. So we started in 1933, actually in Penticton, by my great-grandfather, Ira.
That is sick. And like, what business lasts that long these days? That's crazy.
Yeah, the more you dig into it, the fewer you realize are around. Very unique to be sort of still in the family, still owned and operated by our family. So yeah, it's very unique. It's a cool thing to be a part of. It's cool to look around Penticton, the Okanagan, BC, and see some of the projects that were built over the years and that we were involved in. So yeah, it's definitely an exciting thing. And every once in a while, kind of once a month, I run into somebody through work or whatever that knew my grandfather, worked with my dad, went to school with my mom, or whatever. So that's always fun, always interesting, the whole small town Penticton feel for sure. So yeah, it's great.
And so it was dad, then grandpa, then great grandpa?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive.
That's huge. I for sure thought it was like maybe your parents. I didn't realize it went that deep.
Yeah, and lots has changed. We've got a photo in our office from when we first opened and we sold appliances.
Wow.
And appliances plugged in. So we, started doing that side. And we did actually a lot of line work. Like power line work was more of a, consolidated trade. Then now it's more separate. So we used to do, a ton of that. I've got some old photos of us setting poles by hand with, very very basic machinery and stuff like that. So, it's evolved over the years. Even since I took over from my dad, I feel like we're quite a bit different than what he did when he was running it, which sort of happened a bit organically and somewhat intentionally, but it's been interesting.
Are you an electrician?
I am an electrician.
I'm embarrassed that I didn't know that, but I assumed.
It's a fun topic because people, ask me, oh, you're an electrician. And it's like, oh, I am an electrician, and I have been for a while now. And I'm what's called an FSR, so I've got sort of another credential for our technical safety authority that governs the electrical work in BC. I'm a certified electrician. I don't leave my office too often, mostly project manage and estimate and stuff like that. But I have a large crew of very capable electricians that are much better at it than me, and that's always what I fall down to. I could do it, but it'll take me forever.
That's usually the case, right? When you're a business owner, you usually don't get to do the thing that you loved in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm interested too. So you said you went to university. Was that for electrical work, or did you study something else?
No, once upon a time, I first arrived at university thinking I was going to be a doctor, and I got into sciences, and I realized I hated ferns and biology.
Ferns? What does ferns have to do with it?
Bio 100 University, if you ever take it, and I'm sure that some of the listeners this has got to resonate with, you learn about every million types of ferns there are.
What?
And the kingdoms and the phylums and the... Holly knows what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Why
it's
ferns?
useless knowledge.
It has something to do with medicine?
I don't know.
I think they're trying to establish, like you said, the kingdoms and the phylums and the classes that everything belongs to. They're trying to establish in science probably the hierarchy of it and what you need to know to move forward. They need to know that you know that, but it's...
And like germination and how things propagate and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what? I wish I could tell you more, but A, it was a long time ago. B, I did very poorly.
Good thing you got a business to fall back on.
Yeah,
right?
so anyways, I took a year off actually after that. I did a semester, took a year off, came back.
PTSD.
Yeah. Started working as an electrician as an apprentice and had some challenging days on the job site and kind of threw up my hands and said, you know what, like I don't want to be pulling wire for the rest of my life. I'm not enjoying myself. And my dad says, yeah, I don't blame you, but you should come check out the office. You can kind of help the project managers, be a bit of a coordinator. And I ended up learning to estimate later on that year. And that kind of led me down the path. So I went back to school for university and started into business. Fell into economics just due to interest, which, again, if you talk to people in university, they all hate economics, which is always a fun one to talk about. It kind of progressed from there. I came home in the summers. I helped out in the office and, graduated in 2012. Went to a job site in Kamloops for what I thought was going to be 2 years. We had a big project up there and was there for 5 months. I still remember it. I got the call in February. It was -20, really cold, wind was blowing, and a project manager had quit for my dad, and he wondered if I wanted to come in the office and start to formally go down that road. And honestly, yeah, the rest is kind of history. I moved back that February, bought a house in May, got a dog. I can't believe I haven't brought up the dog yet. Oh, I almost brought her.
You should have brought her. Bailey's awesome.
Dog hair everywhere, though.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually lint brushed myself, so you can see how much dog hair is in my life because I'm covered in it still.
What kind of dog is it?
I have a yellow lab. Yeah.
Oh, they're so pretty.
Yeah, if you ever come to the office, she's the office mascot.
Yes, of course. I've seen it.
She naps in 7 different places and hangs out.
Yeah, she's so mild.
She's
She
learned
just
to
is
be a
like-
great office dog. You take her out and she runs around, but she's super chill. She gets up if the person will pet her,
Yeah.
but won't bother if the person
Yeah.
won't. And she just knows that it's
Not a very good guard dog.
terrible guard dog. Terrible guard dog. Sometimes she doesn't even wake up.
Right on. This is just like the evolution of dogs over the years. They've become like the worst at what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, she's cute and furry, but no guard dog. No.
All good. All good. What's her name again?
Bailey.
Oh yeah, I knew that. Cool. Okay, so what did you graduate with?
I graduated with a major in economics and a minor in business. So a lot of the courses I took in my 3rd and 4th year were like corporate finance, and I took like a prep course for CFA, which is I think the qualification Jagger has,
Okay.
because he was on here
Yep.
a couple episodes ago.
Yep.
Which I wish I wrote, sort of subsequent to taking that course, because all that stuff's long gone out of the brain now. But yeah, I was kind of taking classes to be an investment banker or stockbroker or some of those things, and that was just what I was interested in.
And are you still?
Yeah, super. I don't have the time to deal with it, but yeah, I got halfway through university and decided I loved business, and why would I not come, try to take a stab at a business that I could take over. And the degree I came out of university with didn't matter, and the courses were kind of, I took accounting and I took marketing and I took kind of those general courses, but yeah, so I just sort of pursued what I was interested in and finished up university 2012. I took 2nd year electrical trade school right after it.
Holy.
So I went from, 2-page math equations to trigonometry, which was...
Oh my God, gross.
Yeah, it was kind of like a victory lap after university inadvertently. But yeah, and then, yeah, like I said, kind of started working and came back and finished school while I was working full time and wrote my qualifications, got my red seal, and yeah, the rest is just kind of
Damn.
puttered along since.
I didn't realize how accomplished you were.
Many hats. Yeah, well, I started the electrical trade. You're required to be what's called indentured, signed up as an apprentice. So
Right.
I don't know. I'd have to look back, but I think when I was 15, I started accumulating hours working in summers for my dad. And so all those hours add up, and, yeah, eventually, because your red seal for electrical, you need 6,000 working hours and you need 4 years of school. So it was nice that those had aggregated over the many, many, many years that I had been sort of working on and off. And yeah, so it just kind of was one of those things that got done. And
So cool.
yeah, so yeah, it's sometimes the world I work, going pulling wire is a great way to spend the day. It's a lot less stressful, it seems.
Do you have to get out in the field every now and then?
I don't. Like, I'm trying to manage projects a little bit less just so I can sort of focus on other things. But yeah, like I managed projects for years. I've gone out and helped with shutdowns. Yeah, we did a project in Walmart night shift in Quesnel that I remember working all day, driving out to, working a few hours at night, going to bed, waking up, having the site meeting in the morning, and then driving back the next day. And then, needed extra hands. And Quesnel's, if you know Quesnel's, not really a place with a ton of people that were able to come help out. So, yeah, I love working with my hands. I grew up working on cars. Love that high school passion was cars for sure. And so, yeah, I really miss working with my hands, obviously.
Yeah.
I love what I do and love the different side of things, but I love jumping in the trench and grabbing a shovel, and I don't sit around and watch very well.
Do you have like a car at home that you work on kind of thing, or like just as a...
I don't. Along
No?
with the stocks, the car hobby took a back seat. Cars are a fun hobby that is extremely expensive and very time consuming. And neither of those things I have these days. So, unfortunately, I worked on cars for years and years and years. But no, I have a brand new hybrid car that I will never touch. Don't need to because it's brand new. So,
But being an electrician, could you figure it out if you had to? Or is that a
automotive
different?
electronics is quite a bit different. It's
yeah.
like electronics now. It's not,
They
power
probably
to the
change
plug.
so often too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the technology just keeps advancing.
Oh, it's crazy. It's like trying to figure out your computer if your computer wasn't working. It's pretty
Yeah.
much the same.
Yeah. Is anybody from the past generation still involved in your business?
Family-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom and dad live in town. My dad is not active, and I occasionally am successful in roping him in to come help me out with some things. He's always a great resource, always happy to answer questions, is available, but no, he doesn't work there anymore, and he's happy about that. So, and my mom has been a great resource and a huge help on the accounting side.
Oh, sweet.
So she's retired as well, and sort of just kind of a pet project for her, and she always is keen to help, and she's an absolute lifesaver, especially we switched accounting systems last year, and you might know a bit about that. It's an absolute treat.
Yeah. I just am going through that right now, actually.
You are just in for one for
Love
the next
it.
year and a half at least.
So much fun.
So yeah, nobody's really active, but yeah, are both very helpful to sort of run in the background for sure.
How long did the transition for your parents retiring and you taking over? Like, how long was that process?
It was what I found out after the fact, a very informal, very unstructured succession plan that we made happen somehow. So yeah, I was back in early spring 2013. My dad officially retired in the spring of 2016, but in 2015, he was 3 days a week. The year before, he was 4 days a week. So yeah, by the last 2015, he was showing up, checking emails, helping out, but was sort of phased out of day to day. And so yeah, it was, kind of 2-ish years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it sounds like a really good way to do it, though. Like, I know you say unstructured, but that's probably one of the best ways to do it.
So thankful.
Yeah.
Like looking back, hearing other people's stories on how well it went. And definitely at times, we disagreed on things and had some interesting arguments, but would go home at the end of the day. And for a period, I was actually living with them during this interesting thing. And I remember sort of having a very, firm disagreement with my dad over something. I have no idea what it was. Nothing, earth-shattering, and going home later that night and having dinner like nothing happened. Work kind of stayed at work, and you look back at these things now and you hear these horror stories of people, trying to go through this. And yeah, very thankful for sort of how well that worked. And, we would discuss things and his word was kind of final. And then one day mine was, and he started to, the old Homer Simpson float back into the bush. And yeah, like I said, I couldn't be more thankful on how well it worked out. And I
had to get that visual in my head for a second there.
That GIF, right? Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. So yeah, it was kind of a 2-year thing, and there was some other people that I kind of transitioned some tasks from and learned from as well, from our bookkeeper at the time, and learn safety and learn that side of the business and learn the accounting side of the business and learned we had no marketing plan at all. And so I started to figure that out.
And do you find that, is there any staff still left over from when your dad was around?
Yeah, there's a few field staff. And our general manager, Dale, I always forget and should know this, but he's been there at least 15 years now.
Yeah.
So he was kind of the constant through the transition, which was a huge help, both in, the day that my dad wasn't there to ask the questions for, whether he was on vacation or just not there, Dale was that resource and that consistent piece. And yeah, we had a couple field staff who've been with us. I'd have to look again. I think Gord's coming up. He's got to be getting close to that, 20 years, and same with Al. And as a little aside, and I don't know, it's just a me thing, but I had to give those guys ROEs during the pandemic. And it was the first time they had both been laid off from bets, and like their, I think Gord's was 2004 to 2020, and Al's was something like that too. And it was just kind of crazy. Not like it, means a whole lot, but it was just one of those kind of crazy things that was a result of the pandemic.
Yeah. Ouch. That had to hurt. Like, you must have grown up with these guys, right?
Yeah, and they're back, and nothing's really changed since.
Good.
But just on how payments and EI was working in that time, because everybody came to a stop,
and no one knew what was going to happen with COVID, right?
Exactly.
You didn't know if this was a 2-week thing, a 2-year thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And these are guys that work in service, so they're the day-to-day, come change the light fixture, small reno, whatever it might be, and that's the customer-facing business was the most variable at the time, because nobody knew what was right and what was wrong. So yeah, we ended up, I think for one point we had all of our field staff laid off. And just management left.
What a time to be a business owner. The last 2 years.
Yeah, it's been wild. Never a dull moment.
The resiliency Olympics.
I was I had to bring my car into the mechanic shop the other day, and the fella that was just a young kid drove me back and forth and whatever. We were talking about COVID, and I said, though, like, we're living history right now. Like, this shit is going to be in the history books, and we're just living through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully this is a one-timer.
Yeah, well, a one-timer that unfortunately is going to last probably like 10 or 20 years, but whatever.
Hopefully not.
Yeah,
we're done.
Yeah, out.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say with having residual staff from when your dad was still there was, do you find that there's any kind of old school still implemented in those guys, and it's kind of clashes with your style of running, or you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. For the most part, no. Unfortunately with the transition, we did lose some staff that may have been less on board with it, and don't blame them. I was mid-20s.
Yeah.
Trying to figure things out to a certain degree. So, which was tough, and losing some of those people was some of the tougher moments, especially in the early on years. But no, it's been good. I didn't turn the whole thing upside down, right? It's not broken, don't fix it kind of mentality early on, and made some subtle changes, but and we adapted to an online system from paperwork tickets and things like that, and they've been very helpful transitions, and everybody sort of seems to feel that they were a positive, proactive change. And and some of the ones that you expect to be that old school mentality come surprise you. And
really?
Some of them are like the most versed on the app and use it the best. And
wow.
So yeah, definitely one of those, don't expect too much, because people surprise you, and there has been a lot of positive with those people that have been through that transition. So yeah, very fortunate again to have a strong kind of core group that I got to sort of assume, and we kind of built it out from there. So
do you have a different style than your previous generations, like running the place?
Yeah, definitely. The business I run now and the business that my dad look a lot different. We focus a lot more on the smaller stuff. We're a lot more in town, in the area. My dad did large industrial projects, but that was a lot of what the economy had at the time, right?
Right.
And, we tried to do that in those early years, and big projects were fewer and far between, and it just made sense to, kind of stay local and work with people that and do small projects like that. I've been told, and unfortunately my grandfather passed, I can't remember now what year, 2010 I believe. So I didn't have a ton of overlap with him, but people tell me I run a lot more like him, more business oriented. My dad was a tradesperson forced to run a business. I'm a business person forced to learn a trade or something like that.
That's cool.
Can you do all the jobs that you have, that you give people? Like, so you've probably heard Kevin on the show tell me, like, you need to know how to do every job in your business. Does that apply to you?
I know probably how to do, not necessarily as well as the people do it, but I could probably hack my way through everything that happens in our business.
Damn.
Which with the security bolt on this past year has been a whole new,
Yes.
New piece and a whole new technology. And I was super ignorant in thinking that, this is going to be easy. This will be exactly like electrical. No, it's completely different. But that's been fun and it's been entertaining. So
How'd you get into the security side?
So we were doing security for years, and in the mid 2000s, the guy that held the security ticket, which is different from electrical and required to, be in the security business, retired. And at the time, we couldn't find anybody to take that over, and he ended up selling the security business. So fast forward to a couple years ago, a nice gentleman by the name of Adam Power from Local Security was in town, and we end up having a happen chance meeting and sort of connected on a couple levels and started doing the electrical installs for his security business. He ended up transitioning into essentially a software business and wanted to get out of the security, so I ended up buying that from him. And yeah, May 2nd or May 3rd, 2021, Betts Electric Security Limited was born.
So awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's been a wild first year. Went really well. Lots of challenges, lots of new things.
Mm-hmm.
But it fits really well with our business, and it's very complementary. And it's a time in Penticton, unfortunately, where security is important.
Yep.
And it's been nice to help people and sort of be able to offer that service and that peace of mind. And
Well, I'm working with, business coaches and other franchise partners that I work with. I've always been told and heard if your business isn't growing, it's dying. So,
That's like a kick.
It
feels like a
is.
kick.
but if it's true, right?
Yeah,
if
it
you're
is.
not changing with the times, if you're not looking to adapt to your customers' needs, if you're not looking for opportunities in the marketplace, then you're stagnant and you are potentially dying.
I 100% agree. And I often hear about businesses who, like mom and pop shop type businesses who don't care to grow and get bigger. They just want to be their own little shop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how
It's comfortable.
enough to make their living, right?
Comfortable.
But no aspirations to grow and be as successful as Cam Betts or Holly Tayel. But
yeah, it's that entrepreneur's mindset,
Right?
where it's just, I feel like in a different world, in different contexts, I would have been a serial entrepreneur, in which I continue to feel is still happening. But I started with kind of a big piece to work through before
I was
the
literally
next
going to
one.
say, as you were talking, like, you are a serial entrepreneur.
Oh,
you just see
It
the
just
different
drives
things
me.
anywhere.
It's all I think about now too. Yeah, it's I sit back and listen to an ad on the radio and think about the marketing angle of it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, and it's
and you're young. You're
Oh,
young.
and that's
Yeah.
how we
There's-
connected, I think, too,
Yeah.
initially, was just that interest and that drive. And
Yeah.
and same with Kevin Smith was another one. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's great. Definitely what fuels me.
Yeah, the world's your oyster. Like, there's so many possibilities out there. And the fact that you are so young, but have so much experience, not only in running a business, but the knowledge behind it as well.
Yeah.
I think, we'll be watching Cam Betts do some cool things for a long time.
I
I hope to do some cool things here. Might have some cool things on the docket for this year yet, but it's a little early. So
I suppose you can't talk about it.
yeah, hit me
Unbelievable.
up. Hopefully in
Teaser
6 to
for
9
episode 2.
Yeah, 6 to 9 months. I'll cycle back. I'll let you know how it's playing out and if it
Goddamn,
did or
Cam.
not.
How dare you come on my podcast and say something like that? Now
Isn't this
I
like
gotta know.
the cliffhanger hype,
Yeah,
of every
true,
TV show
true.
that's on right now, and it leaves you at the end, and you're
Yeah.
like, no, this is
Well-
why I'm watching 7 episodes today. Like,
We are far from the end of this, but yes,
Yeah.
that is definitely what's going on here. And I have to say, as somebody who purchases your services, your security services, I am
Thank you,
shocked to hear that you have only been doing this for, what did you say, a year, 2 years?
yeah, and that's not entirely fair. So as part of the acquisition, I essentially picked up his local team. So we picked up his lead tech at the time, picked up one of the managers, Eric, who you met. So
Eric's awesome.
Yeah, so
by the
Eric and
way.
Anthony were sort of that core piece of the business that kind of came with it, and they've been an amazing resource and knowledge piece, and just generally solid people to work with and start to figure and structure and build this thing out. So not very fortunate with that for sure.
So from the very first time that I reached out to Eric to get my security system installed, it was like you guys have been doing this for 20 years. There was zero hiccups and zero problems and just all the knowledge, like
Yep.
all the knowledge, and everything down to even, is it Ro? No, not Ro. Your admin lady.
Oh, Trisha.
Trisha. I don't know why I said Ro. Anyway, I reached out to her recently and asked if she could give me an invoice every month. And because that isn't something that I think you can generate from the online portal or whatever.
Yeah.
And like zero problems. She just does it.
Yeah, we'll
And
just
probably-
add you to the list of
yes,
people that get invoices
that's
for the monthly
awesome.
fee. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm shocked and well, maybe not shocked because you're pretty awesome dude, but it's just very cool to see how you get just the right people in place and everything feels, at least on our end, very seamless.
Yeah, well, and it helps, Anthony, our head tech, I think has been doing this for well over a decade. So it's nice you've got that. Eric's been in the business for at least 5 years as well. So having that knowledge to start to work with and build on and take processes that are proven in a somewhat similar service business and try to apply them. But like I said earlier, there was lots of things to figure out, and it was not as simple as my mind placed it at the start, which has been fun. So
But what your customers see or what your customers experience is that experience that you've just talked about, right? Like I haven't used your security company yet. And thinking
What?
about it, I could
Holy.
potentially use a security system.
get on it.
Right?
What the
I
hell?
love mine.
Okay, so I could potentially use this, but I can speak for Betts Electric. And I've dealt with Dale. And, I reach out to him if I need something and he's on it. He estimates it
Directly to Dale?
directly to Dale.
Right on.
Estimates, invoices, like everything's done so seamlessly. Everything that needs to be done is done. There's no questions from my side, like spot on customer service. So I feel like, and this is me, I feel like once you've nailed that in a business, it's not hard to duplicate it into other businesses. So
For sure, yeah. Once you can kind of figure out those pieces, it just seems like the constant battle of trying to stay on top of that thing. And Dale handles so much. It's actually incredible to sort of manage his workload. We've spent the last year trying to find somebody to help him and take some of that load because he's such a go-to person, and Total Restoration's one of them. And a few of the project managers, I swear, spent half the day talking to Dale. And so it's good. It's good to hear about the positive experiences. That's what we're shooting for. And I tend to hear about the ones that don't go bad and have to try to fix them. So it's always great to hear about the positive ones.
So speaking of positive experiences, I remember, I think it was this past summer or fall, I texted you directly about one of your drivers who was driving through a school zone, and I was following him, and he had at least 5 or 6, maybe more cars behind him in this school zone, 30 the whole way. And that just doesn't happen. And I was just so proud for you in that moment that you had this driver who was obeying the rules of the road.
Also love to hear about those ones because they're few and far between.
Knowing that there's all these cars behind him and he's, I say in air quotes, holding them up, but he's not because he's just following the rules.
Yeah.
And that was really awesome.
Yeah, that was definitely one that was tough in the early years, and we've tried to reiterate over and over, like, you're driving a billboard, you got to be, don't drive like however you might want to drive in your personal time.
Right.
You got to follow the rules of the road, and had some hiccups in the early years, but the person driving is Al, and he's an absolute beauty. He's, again, one of the long tenured guys, and he's talking about retirement soon, and he's the guy I show up to the office, and if I'm not there by 7, he's already there. He's sitting at the lunchroom table. He's doing his paperwork, and hey, Al, how's it going today? And I'm going to miss those days when he retires in a couple of years here. So it's just one of those people you're like, I don't think you should ever retire. You're a fixture.
A constant, a constant, and represents the company so well.
Yeah, and he's, so good with people and those small jobs, and yeah, he's a classic, that guy.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say just a side question, because I've seen your vehicle, and you don't drive a Betts electric vehicle. Is there a reason for that?
I know the answer to this. I bet you.
What do you think the answer
drive like
is?
a bat out of hell?
Because you want to drive like an asshole.
I am a great driver.
Yeah, right. Bullshit.
I'm a better driver than I was as a kid, for one. So to back this story up, I think you guys have both seen the Corolla that Eric now drives that is fully wrapped.
Yeah.
That was my previous vehicle.
Okay.
And I drove that for about a year. And there's logoed vehicles and there's wrapped vehicles, and the Corolla falls under the you can't miss me wrapped vehicle.
Yes.
So when I was driving the Corolla, I was a much better driver. Really stems your road rage when you know you can't be a road rage person. So, and honestly, I think now that I think back at it, because I am a lot more relaxed driver, I think it took a little bit out of me, because, you do that so many times and you're like, okay, well, there's just no point in being upset.
Yeah.
Just kind of continue on. But this is the first vehicle that's been unlogoed. I like my incognito mode. I get harassed on it a bunch.
Well,
and
no.
I might slap a bumper sticker on it one of these days.
No
but
judgment from me. I mean, I have an unlogoed vehicle
Okay,
as well.
Holly. Okay.
Hang on.
Holly who whips around corners doing 90 and gets tickets everywhere.
Do not. I have not had a speeding ticket since 2015.
Oh, and how many did you get in 2015?
7.
Oh, no.
And how long did it take you to get those 7?
Like less than 2 years. ICBC was ready to take my license. I had to calm down.
Oh my God.
But I haven't had a speeding ticket since then. And I just, no judgment, just wondering, right?
It's a very fair question, and I think the standard model for business owners is drive the logoed vehicle, and I felt like I've done my time. Like I filled that up, and I know a few other people that business owners that I know don't drive a logoed
There's a
vehicle,
lot of them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just felt like I needed to take some advantages of being the boss, and this was one of them for myself. So, we'll see how long it lasts.
Yep.
As somebody who logos vehicles for a living, I don't think I can get away with not driving a logoed vehicle, but let me tell you, every day I wish I could.
Yeah, you're definitely committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes sense, right?
I had I was kind of pulling. Oh yeah, Betts brought some beer. This is our first beer on the podcast.
I asked if it was
This is
rude to bring
inaugural.
beers. Like, it's Saturday afternoon. This is a casual thing. I hadn't prepared at all. So
Thanks for the beer.
Can we cheers? Because
Yeah.
this is inaugural. I know I have
Cheers.
my tea that Holly.
Episode 14, Cam the Bad Influence is here.
I wanted to bring alcohol to my episode, but it was 9:00 in the morning and I forgot to chill the champagne. So next one. This is good.
So what I was gonna say is I was just pulling out of I don't know, the mall, I think the other day, not the mall, Safeway parking lot, and I was kind of pulled out a little too far from, like, I was trying to see the traffic coming both ways and whatever, and somebody drove by in a bike and had to, like, go a little bit out onto the road because I was pulled out too far and kicked the front of my car, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, looking around me, I'm like, did anybody see that? Because I have vehicle logo, like company logos all over my car. And I was just terrified that someone was going to be like, how people get on social media and whatever. But
Catch half of it, assume the worst.
yeah, for sure. That
Or
I
you chase
think
them
that I hit
down.
them
Or you chase him down.
that was my
and then
first
it's a
reaction.
problem.
I'm like, where does he live?
Kicks my car. That's
Yeah.
just about as kicking the dog.
There's
I
a
had somebody
scuff on the
kick my
front of my
truck and I
freaking
was
car.
livid about it. Yeah.
Right?
Seems rude.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm
So
like,
rude.
sorry I was out a little too far, but I couldn't see.
Yeah.
I'll throw in a quick plug for Slackwater Brewing. We're drinking their Low Tide Lager. I absolutely love it.
I haven't had this before, and I was just about to say we need to give them a shout out because this is great.
Yeah. Went to pick it up first day it was available. Grabbed 4 cases. No shame.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
good.
The office beer fridge is officially stocked back up.
Am I allowed to try it?
Yeah.
You're allowed to do whatever you need.
You and I have probably had COVID germs. I don't drink, but I just want to try it because you guys say it's so good.
It is good.
Less Slackwater. Who doesn't
Yeah,
love
easy
Slackwater?
drinking. Yeah.
There's a fucking ice in it. That's so weird.
Ice cold, baby.
Yep, tastes like beer. They all taste the same. to
Can
me.
confirm.
It's good.
Yeah, there you go.
What challenges did you face when you were transitioning?
Could probably list. Yeah. Seems like lots, people has always been a challenge. People has been the bigger challenge I didn't realize I would have to deal with. I thought I was taking over an electrical business and was going to deal with wires and stuff.
Wires and stuff.
But yeah, we've had sort of varying size of a team, and dealing with people is always a challenge, I think. Trying to meet their needs, trying to make sure that you're giving them what they need, that they're doing what they should be doing, keeping them motivated, finding, we're obviously in a skilled trade, finding skilled people when you need them is an extreme challenge, has been for the last couple of years. I'm very thankful I'm not in certain other industries that have really been struggling the last 2 years. So I don't want to complain because there's so many industries, other businesses that are really struggling, and we've been able to get by, able to sort of always find people when we need them and make do with the solid team that we do have. When I first took over, so the construction industry is a little bit different in when it faces recession, it's a couple years after it happens. Because when recession hit in 2008, the next day, anything that we were building was already committed, was already funded, was possibly in construction. The next project that you do was already designed, was already funded, and so it was 2011, 2012, where we kind of faced a lot of the recession. So I kind of picked up the business in not the best time, not a great financial position because of that, and faced some challenges surrounding that and managing cash, which, I look back at university and I mentioned I took accounting, and the class that I did the worst in, it was a night class. It was offered once a week. You miss a class, you miss a week, missed a few classes, real challenge, barely got through it. Sure enough, taking over the business, accounting became one of the most important things that I learned how to do and learned how to manage. And in construction, you deal kind of with a negative cash flow. You go do the work, you go install the materials, and then a month later, hopefully people pay you instead of offering a service, getting paid at the time like you do when you go, get a massage or go buy a candy bar. So yeah, I learned how to manage cash flow in a very challenging time for our business, which again has kind of paid dividends of knowing if you can make it through the worst of the worst, when things get a bit better, it becomes a lot easier. So that was a big challenge early on for me, is trying to find people, trying to find the appropriate work at, that you can actually make money on and keep people employed, be busy, try to make money while you're doing it. So those first couple of years were a roller coaster of some goods, some bad, some ugly, some everything kind of under the sun, trying to find people and trying to find people that will do good work for you and have that reputation. Like Holly says, you have these good customer experiences, and that's what you shoot for, because the person that you employ ends up being your face, right? And especially,
Absolutely.
In a business in a small town like ours, they represent you, and that always becomes a challenge. And we have a really solid team. We've got a large group right now that we put through as apprentices, started, without any experience, went through the whole apprenticeship, and they're out there running jobs now. And that's been a big point of pride for me, of, almost like having kids and watching them grow up and get out on their own and do their own thing. We've got a solid group from that, and we've had a fairly solid group for the last couple of years, and it hasn't been a lot of change, which is nice. We keep bringing in new people and have found some really good ones. So super thankful for our team and not having to face too many of those struggles on a regular basis.
What you said about kind of it feeling like having kids and watching them grow, it's so true, right? Like, your employees do become like your children almost. And I know neither of you have kids. You don't have kids,
No,
right? Yeah, neither
just
of you
a dog.
have kids, but I can confidently say, having kids, that it is the same feeling. Like, you share in their prides, you cry with them sometimes, you
Yeah.
You know, you congratulate them when they do something outside of work, just like they were your own kid.
Yeah.
If you hired a student and they were graduating from something, you would probably go watch them graduate, right? Like these people become your family.
Yeah. Some of them are having kids, they're buying houses. So it's kind of fun, you know, as the employer, you get requested for that letter to give the bank, you know, that this person's in good standing. So it's kind of nice to have given out a few of those over the years to a few of them and see some of them now, you know, now owning their home. And I think that kind of, again, is, you know, what drives me day in, day out is, you know, this isn't about me really anymore. You know, I think right now we're probably 39 on staff in total. And
Oh, but you have 39 staff?
I'd have to check. Yeah. Because we have people go to school and
Holy shit.
yeah. So yeah, we're between 35 and 40 right now for sure. And yeah, you know, all these people have, you know, families to take care of, mortgages to pay. So there's a bit of that, you know, burden you kind of feel like you take on of, you know, if we don't have work in a couple months, you know, I got to lay this person off, and, you know, that challenges them and to try to, you know, maintain people and to say, look, you know, I got a career here for you. You give me everything. I'm going to do everything I can do to protect you and to keep you gainfully employed. So, yeah, it becomes a bit, which is weird because now I think it's a little bit closer. But for a while there, more than half my staff was older than me. So it's weird you think about that kid's context a little bit, but it's totally right. You feel protective of the group and huge pride when they're doing things, or you go show up on a job site and, you know, these guys have overcome challenges and figured out how to do things, and it looks great when they did it. And, you know, a few of them, and it's kind of an electrical thing, but, you know, behind all the walls is all the wiring, right? And, well, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's behind the walls. Well, you know, I go to job site and the guys drag me over. Oh, look how nice this looks. And, you know, it's something nobody's going to see and nobody really cares about. But they take pride in how that looks.
For sure.
Whether or not people can see it. And I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart is, you know, that pride in doing the things when it doesn't matter. Because when it does matter, you know that, you know, they're hitting it out of the park in those times. So, yeah, it's fun. It's fun every day, and it's fun to be a part of for sure.
And do you feel the pressure of 35 to 40 individuals and families relying on your company?
Good question.
Huge. And that's, you know what I mean? That's really what drives me. And, you know, that's, you know, keeps you up at night when you're waiting for the results of a tender, you know, a job that we put a bid in on, and, you know, wondering, right? You know, it's construction is one of those things, you know, you win a job and it could start tomorrow. It could start 6 to 9 months from now, right? If it's an apartment, they're going to dig a hole and put a foundation in and put a parkade in and then build it up. And
I don't know about your projects, but some projects that we work on are phased out over like 2 years. So we'll go and we'll do a little bit of work, and then we'll get called back, you know, 3 months later to come do a very small amount of work. And then we come back 2 months later and we do a large chunk, and it's just like spread out over 2 years.
Yeah. So a lot of, so like a typical apartment, for example, is exactly that. You go there, 2 guys will throw the underground pipe in, day's work.
Yeah.
Come back 3 months later.
Yeah.
Throw some more pipe in.
Yeah.
Come back 3 months later.
Yeah.
And then do all your work. And then come back a month later, put the plugs and switches and light fixtures on, and turn the lights on and leave. It's just that simple. Just that simple.
Sounds really simple.
Yeah, it doesn't sound simple at all.
It's like a 9-month process, but it's fine.
Yeah. No big deal.
Do you try though, like, to kind of run the business at all the way your dad, or the way you've kind of seen it being run by your dad, or is it just your own baby now and you do what you want with it?
Definitely, you know, running with what worked, right? You start with this great foundation, and what I've tried to do is just try other things. What works really well, we do more of. What didn't work very well, we try to do less of. And you kind of take what's working, what worked for him. You look around what's working for other people within the industry, not in the industry. And it's cool to look at 2 other people running businesses that, you know, Holly, we're kind of related a bit. Graphically hip, not at all.
Not at all.
You know? But it's interesting, and what I've always loved to do, and same with like the books that I read, you know, you grab little pieces, right? It's not about, you know, reading a book and recognizing that that's the gospel and how it needs to be done. But if you can grab a good idea out of that book and one from another one, and you have a conversation in here, you know, how somebody's engaging their employees and oh, we do this one thing and it's been really good. And so you pick up on that and you try that in your business. And every day, every month, every year is just like this, tweaking of the formula and trying new things and working the courage up to do something crazy like switch your accounting system.
Right? Oh, what a nightmare. This is the second time I've switched my accounting system.
I feel bad for you.
Kevin Smith talked me into incorporating my company, and so we had to get a whole new accounting system for the new company. And it's just been every day. I don't know where I found these hours before, but now I'm having to deal with all of that every day. It's just a night, and it's just me doing that, right? And my bookkeeper.
Yeah. Yeah, the many hats of a business owner. It's an absolute treat.
Treat is a good word for it.
Yeah, keeps you entertained. I always say it keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah.
Because there's it, and again, it's what drives me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you work so long hours or work late? It's like, I don't know. I work from home. I was telling you guys I thought I was getting COVID, so I worked from home for a couple of days. And one day I missed lunch. It was like 3 o'clock. I was like, I haven't eaten lunch. I looked down, it was 11 o'clock. I looked up, it was 3 o'clock. And, and I was trying to wrap up year end. So you're digging through accounting wormholes. And and then, I get engrossed in what I do. And so it just time flies by and you spend 4 hours and you get one thing done. And you're like, I have all these other things still to deal with. That was just one piece. And
it's so true.
And it's like, that took me 8 hours and I kind of got half of what I needed to be done for one of my companies now. It's like, and that's the small one.
Yeah.
So
how many hours do you typically work in a day or a week?
I'm a solid probably 50 hours a week. Mm-hmm. I really try not to work on the weekends. That's reserved for skiing and ski patrol in the winter for sure.
Oh, yeah, it is.
But yeah, I usually been getting to work between 7:30, and I typically leave around 5.
Mm-hmm.
A couple times I've been kind of going home and working from home, and like Friday it was like 5:45 and I realized I should stop working. And so yeah, I work like a consistent kind of 10-hour day, Monday to Friday. Occasionally we'll dip for a couple extra hours, and sometimes I'll go in on the weekend or whatever. So I don't know, what's that, 50 to 60 depending on it. I don't think I work less than 50 on a given week, and other weeks I work a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because your employees come in and they clock in and they clock out. But as business owners, at least I know I feel this way, my work never ends. And even if I do happen to leave the building at some point, I lay down in my bed at night and it's going there too, just over and over again. Yeah. What did I forget? What did I not get done? And
that's why I work at night. It's like, I could sit on the couch and watch something, or I could get something done and feel accomplished. And sometimes you don't have the option to sit there because your brain goes, you have all these things to do and you need to do this stuff. And so you just get up and do it, and it makes you feel better, and you sleep better that night because you got a couple things done.
For sure.
But the to-do list is endless.
You know what I've started to notice? I'm a bit of a recovering workaholic. Yeah. So I had a hard time, shutting off my brain or disconnecting on a weekend. And people would say to me, like, some of the best ideas that they have come from when they're outside the office. And I was like, okay, sure. But it's interesting because, I now have scheduled breaks in the day where I'll go for spin or I'll go for lunch. And really, it's interesting. Sometimes I'm just driving between my office and my house, which is all of 6 minutes. And that's not driving too fast. I live in a small town. I live in a small town. And that's where sometimes I have great ideas or things that have been, on my plate or bothering me or need to be solved. That's where I'll solve it. Sometimes I'll just go for a 30, 45-minute drive just because that's where I'm finding it's the most productive for me right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you. I don't know if you find that, but getting out of the office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had this whole housing adventure a couple years ago where I decided I was going to move out of my house and rent it out, and I was going to buy another house. And anyways, not to get too deep into that side of the story, but I moved up Apex in kind of the interim. My family's got a small condo up there, so I was living up there and commuting every day. And I talked to James Shulman, who's the general manager at Apex, and he drives every day. And I asked him, I was like, what's this like? Like, how are you dealing with this? And is it a burden? Is it a good thing? He's like, honestly, it's great. Mm-hmm. You spend the time on the way to work. thinking about what you got to do, whatever, getting ramped up. And then on the way home, it's the exact opposite. You take some time, you decompress, you let the work things, because, you know, now I'm in the same boat. You know, work to home is literally a 7-minute drive, which is great because I forget stuff at my house all the time.
Yeah. Forgot my computer the other day.
But me too, honestly.
That's funny.
But yeah, you have that time and you spend that time thinking, and that is literally, I think, driving. And, you know, early on we were actually out in the Kootenays as well. We had a sort of sub office and had a few guys out there. We'd been out there for years. And when I first got involved, I was in charge of sort of Cranbrook and going out to Cranbrook and the Cranbrook projects. And Cranbrook's a good 7-hour drive, and I did that once a month, right? And so you spend a lot of time thinking, and I became the king of, hey, remind me, you know, audio notes of things that just like come to you, and they come to you out of nowhere, like epiphanies, and you're like.
I use an app on my phone called Boomerang, and you would just pick it up and hit the boomerang that was on your screen, and you would say whatever you wanted, and you let go, and it sent a voice memo to your email address that you had programmed it to do. It was just like, you didn't need to like open your email app and start typing things. It was just, you picked it up and you just said what you needed to say, and you let go, and boom. It was off.
And it's great because, you'll have some of these great ideas that you don't write down. And Apex, there's no cell service in between on the drive.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a burden because I've pulled over so many times to like jot a quick note and try to remember whatever brilliant thing I had just decided I had thought of. And sometimes it was brilliant, other times it wasn't.
And those roads aren't the most forgiving roads to be pulling over on.
Well, they're fine to pull over, but they're not one to be distracted while driving because they're windy, and I have driven it a billion times, so I may or may not drive it not overly fast, but faster than some.
Yeah, but when you know, you probably know it by the back of your hand, right? So,
for sure. Yeah, after going up and down for the better part of a year, plus weekends, every weekend for my whole life, pretty much.
Yeah, and you probably know, like, oh, I'm going to turn around here and the horses will be there, right? Like,
and the straight stretch is coming up. And,
Pass all these slow drivers.
Well, you know what? When you drive in the morning and you come back at night, the same people are driving at the same time.
Yeah,
and there's not a lot of traffic, but it's always the same people.
Yeah.
Depending what time you leave, you pass the school bus at a certain point. That tells you what time you're at.
You're 2 minutes late out your driveway, and the school bus is in front of you.
Yeah, if the school bus is at the pickup spot, I'm late.
Yeah.
If I pass it sort of halfway down the road, I'm good. And so it's funny. There's a couple of things. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and that was it. You know, I got into podcasts and audiobooks because it's like, oh, I'm going to spend an hour in my vehicle. Like I'm too cheap to not, gain something from this time, right? And there's only so much time you can think and so many songs you can listen to.
Right.
And podcasts and audiobooks were kind of a fun filler for that. And again, audiobooks for me aren't as good as reading a book. I don't retain as much. I'm one of those people that sort of needs to read it kind of thing. But for certain books, it's great, right? Just to sort of listen to that, you get engaged in it. 30 minutes goes by in a flash.
So would you say, besides this one, what's your favorite podcast?
I've fallen off the podcast game. There was one that I used to love when I was doing my Cranbrook trips called like Passive Income. I don't think that's what it's called. It was, I'd have to remember. I'll look it up and I'll get back to you on it.
Okay.
But it was cool, and it was this really interesting dynamic host, and he'd bring on these guests and talk about all these different businesses that were just passive income. Right? Like you create this brand and you resell stuff on Amazon. So you go buy yoga mats and you sell them on Amazon. And once you kind of create the culture and the marketplace to figure out what a good product is, and then people are just buying your mats and you're just making money and you're not doing anything. And so passive income was always something I was super interested in.
Yep.
And so, no favorite podcast right now. I'm listening to the Will Smith biography book.
Cool. I bet that's amazing.
It's been very unexpected. I don't know what I was expecting. Will Smith, hilarious, but it's been very real and not necessarily heavy, but just not sunshine and rainbows. And he does say that. He was like, if you're all thinking this was going to be a comedy special, like, what do you think I was going to say in all these pages? And, but yeah, he's great guy, big fan of everything that guy's done, and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was like a staple growing up after school and stuff like that. So it's been interesting to sort of hear. I've just sort of started it, so it's still in his childhood.
Is this your book recommendation?
It's not.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
actually reading a
Okay.
different book,
Okay.
but I'll save that for later. But
Yep.
yeah, so been interesting so far. I think the other one I've got going right now is Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last.
Simon Sinek's awesome.
Yeah, he's got some really good stuff and very interesting point of view that I really resonate with on a lot of things. And again, it's one of those things you listen, you take some ideas that have been proven and work for other people and think, hey, this is a good way that I can improve my life or be a bit better this year or
Yeah.
do things a bit differently. So yeah, always looking for that edge and ways to step it up.
Do you think, because you started running a business that was kind of already there and established, do you think that you would have been as successful or have loved it as much as if you were to start your own business without that foundation?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I've thought about that lots. What would things be like if, I was starting from scratch? What would I be doing if, this whole electrical business wasn't something that I could have come into? And I have no idea. Some days I think I'd be sitting in a bank.
Yep.
I don't know. I've always seemed to like drive towards management and see opportunities and have this real issue of speaking up all the time. And that's how I end up on so many volunteer commitments and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't know what things would look like, if it would be different, if I would, I think I have that serial entrepreneur. I think I'd be going until I get to a place where, I'm driving the bus or driving myself or whatever the context is. But I don't know. Yeah, I would love to look down that, alternate path universe and see what I'd be doing. And
Do you think you will one day?
do something different?
Maybe not different. Well, yeah, different. But in addition to what you're doing now, just start your own side thing that maybe turns into something amazing.
That's Electric Security Limited.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
And not, granted, that's not from scratch really either, but to a certain degree, I've kind of felt like it has been.
Yeah.
And does it matter if it's from scratch?
No, and
Right.
I don't think it is because, again, the Betts Electric is nothing like it was when I got it, and it was sort of always changing ever since I got involved. And security, I thought I was buying this bolt-on pre-done business. Well, the ways that they did it didn't really fit with how everything else worked in my business. And like you said, you have a formula that works. Why wouldn't you try to replicate it and push it into that same side of the business? So yeah, I'm not sure, and I've always been interested in franchises. I think franchising is a very, and Holly's definitely one of those people that love to pick that brain about the whole franchise world.
Let's do it.
It's cool. So yeah, I don't know what the future's going to bring. We'll see what happens this year. But I can see in 5 years, I think the goal is to sort of be able to put people in place to, run the business in the way that we've been successful and sort of start to step back and I don't know, play puppet master might not be the right way to term it, but that sort of, big vision, steer the ship is kind of where I always see myself trying to get to and, fall into the trenches and fight out the day-to-day battles on the way. And sometimes those are months and months at a time that you surface and try to figure out which way the ship's going and steer it back and keep grinding away. So
You're so young to want to be stepping away from your business in 5 years. How old are you?
32, coming up on 33 pretty quick here.
So before you're even 40, you're going to want to start transitioning away. What are you going to do?
I don't know. I always had this thing and it's starting to change, but I always joked about Freedom 40, trying to retire at 40 and not retire in the way of give up everything, but just the fact that I don't need to go into work, don't need to be there for things to happen, be there as a resource, be there to help. Everybody knows there's no way I could sit at home for more than a week unless I'm on my deathbed sick or something.
Right.
So there's no way that I'm just going to throw my hands up in the air and be done. Freedom 40 is looking maybe like Freedom 45 these days as I get a little bit closer. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like sometimes I think, I'll get this business thing organized and be able to kind of step back a little bit from it. And then I'll go play, stock investor
Yeah.
and get into trading a bit more, because that's definitely a passion piece. But there's so much time required to be good at that I need to, free up that time, which is.
Well, you're on the right track, though. Like everything that I've learned in the last, year and a bit or almost 2 years with our business coaches is that you're in a very vulnerable position when you are the business owner that holds the key to the door, that holds all the access to the bank accounts that your team relies on day to day. What if something happens to you? So to set yourself up in the best possible position, not only for your company, because again, there's people relying on you, but for yourself is, who are you putting in place to take on the roles that you need so that if you don't show up to work for a day, for a week, for 2 months, will your business survive? So that is the safest position for a business to be in, is when there are multiple people running it, not just an owner wearing all the hats. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I do the things, I like doing the things, and it's a different position to be in, but it's a cool position to start to get into.
Yeah, I think you got to start with the mindset of that's where you're going, because I'm the same way, and I still wear too many hats, and I'm still too central of a lot of things. But what I have been successful is starting to get away from is exactly that. Like I took a 3-week vacation a couple of years ago, and granted it was over Christmas, slower time of the year and all those things. But yeah, things, the bills get paid and people have work to do and things are happening, and the world doesn't end because you're not there. Is it stressful right before? Is it stressful when you come back? Is it stressful while you're gone? Absolutely it was. But it's exactly that, right? And it's getting to that point where, and it's not a bad thing, I think, to be that central if you're in a very small business, right? And you do all those things and, you are the things, totally fine. But as you start to get bigger, it becomes harder and harder to be that person to everybody for everything.
And the bigger your company gets and the older your company is, right? A new company starting out is in a completely different position. They're new. You're still figuring out your policies, your procedures. What needs to happen. You're still figuring out those positions and how this company is going to grow. That's different than, someone that's been around longer.
Definitely.
1933.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah.
I don't even know anyone who was alive back then.
100-year anniversary.
I don't know. We're
100-year anniversary.
Well, we're coming up on 90.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah.
2023 is going to be 90 years.
New logo.
Yeah, honestly, ever since you told me that, I've never said that. I haven't actually talked to you since you told me that, you'd want to do that rebranding thing. I've thought so much about it.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately lives pretty low on the functionality part of my world.
I get it.
But yeah, I don't know what we're going to do for 100. I don't know where I'll be at in 100. And
well, even 90's first.
But yeah, 90's coming up. So we'll definitely, at least, make it known. I think it's a pretty cool thing. Not a lot of people can say. And I think it's a pretty cool thing. And, I think 90 years in Penticton, I think, represents a lot more than just us being in business, to look back at, the things we built and the things we've been involved in. And, even just like the sports teams. I wish I had a list of all the minor sports teams that got sponsored over the years. Like we've had.
Oh, you need to put a call out for those shirts. Like if you guys had logos on shirts, like if people have them.
Well, and I don't even know that. And it's just, but I just remember like coming in the office when I was younger, and there was, seemed like somebody's kid's baseball team and soccer team and whatever. So yeah, and you start to think of some of the impact that you've made over such a long time, and fundraisers and nonprofits you supported, and sports teams and hockey teams. And, I think some of those things become pretty cool to look at of, 90 years is a long time, and it's a lot of lives that you've touched and a lot of people impacted in positive ways, in various ways. So,
and that also explains to me, though, where I see you in the community, because I met you through JCI, and I met you giving back your time, volunteering to your community.
Yep.
So not only like you grew up with that then.
Yeah. And it was never something that I feel like I remember being explicitly like you should support your community, but it was
No,
always
just
like
growing up with it.
yeah, and like we did the Safeway renovations, so we shopped at Safeway, and I remember my dad making a big deal about, my mom, one day going to IGA for something, and he's like, oh, you need to support Safeway. They put food on our table, and that whole, supporting those that support you was
Yes.
something that I found out was ingrained, but like, that's the only example that I really remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that I've always felt so ingrained with that, you support the community supports you. And, and it's every way and every fashion that I feel like that applies. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And definitely when I first got involved in JCI and doing all these various things, and it was honestly because I didn't have the money to give. I felt like I could give my time instead because we were in such a tight cash position that like, giving myself away for 4 or 8 hours or whatever was cheaper than, giving a check for $1,000 or whatever. Right. And, I've been sort of punished by that since then because I've got over, committed to various things, and I've had to try to dial it back. And I've found that I'm a little more willing to just, financially support things that I feel passionate about but can't actually help with.
Yeah.
That's been a bit of an emotional struggle the last couple of years, just being like so burnt out from helping or being involved in so many things that you're like, okay, I need to stop doing this. But, ski patrol, I feel like I'm going to be on ski patrol for my whole life just because I love it so much. And it's one of those things that I just can't not be a part of because I just love so many aspects of it. But, yeah, I've definitely had to dial back the volunteer commitments a little bit.
It's so funny that you bring that up because whenever I'm trying to recruit a new member for JCI, most often the first thing they say is, I don't have the time. And I'm like, listen here, Cam Betts is a member and he comes to 1 meeting a year. So you can be a member.
JCI, unfortunately, has been one of those things that took a back seat, but yeah, like I sat on the board of the Southern Interior Construction Association, which is like the regional construction association. I'm now on the board of the provincial one. I was asked to join a charity, a nonprofit foundation for the construction industry a couple of years ago. So I've been a part of that one. And I'm so connected. Like the Southern Interior Construction Association was started in some year like the 50s or 60s. While my great-grandfather was on the first official board meeting, and I've been on that board since 2013, and somebody dug that up and told me that one day, and I was just like blown away. I knew we've been a part of it for a long time, but yeah, so my grandfather was like an original founder of that association, or sort of getting it started with, I believe it was Al Kenyon, from Greyback, Matt Kenyon's grandfather. Was a part of that as well. So yeah, there's certain things that, you just do things because you feel that's the right thing. And then you kind of, oh, well, where did I pick this up from? And you start to put together the pieces. But yeah, it's been interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to pass up the good feelings that come along with helping out.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just talked about this on our last episode, and how there's ultimately, I think it was on a friend's episode, ultimately there's no good deed that is selfless.
Yeah.
Because you just love the feeling that you get helping other people, right? And that in a way is selfish in itself.
Yeah, I think Valley Drive is one of those like selfish things that I got involved in, and we were coming back from nationals in Vancouver on the bus with the Kelowna team, and they had heard about this, fundraiser that St. Catharines, Ontario had run, and it was one of those things. And what stuck with me, it was so easy to do, so low effort, but was going to make such a big impact. I was like, oh, this is like a lazy way to like help a lot, and I kind of got sucked into like, oh, this is such a good thing. It's not going to take a ton of volunteer time. It's not a big commitment for anybody. And, you look back and, we're raising thousands of pounds of food and
thousands of
dollars in the last couple ones. And it's wild because, you put it together and you get out there and it's wonderful how it's just the epitome of you don't need to do these big outlandish things to make a big impact. There's opportunities to go out for a day, to put in a couple hours, but to make a really big impact. And so Valley Drive's been one of those selfish type of things where, and you get out there and you have fun because you're doing it with people that you like, and you kind of hang out and you wave signs and you act kind of stupid for a little while and people look at you funny, but some people come drop off food and then that's great. And some people come by and they thank you right out of the blue and say, oh, I can't donate, but I rely on the food bank and thank you for doing this. And you're like, oh, that hurt the feels real good.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those every year that that's not why you're out there. That's not what got you out there. But somebody says that to you and you just step back and go, oh, I'm actually doing something pretty cool right now that, maybe you just ignorantly don't, address early on or something. But there was a lot of those moments that really kind of make you know why you're there. And
yeah, shout out to Katie Cheney for heading up our last Valley Food Drive, which was our most successful one.
Yeah.
What was it, 7,000 pounds or something of
I don't
food?
remember the exact numbers, but it beat all the records.
Yeah,
I
feel like it was 3,500 pounds, but it was also like $2,000.
$4,000 maybe?
Yeah, it was a bunch of money.
And
it was a lot.
Crazy. And like our first year, we did 2,000 pounds and like $300 or $400, but they had got, I think, the square going and all these other ways to sort of collect donations. And we got a bunch of community partners. I know Barry Beecroft collected stuff that year, who's another great community company, family-owned business. I do ski patrol with Ryan, and love working with that guy too.
Yeah,
work
they're
with
great
him in a
over
bunch
there.
of capacities. Yeah, and Barry is just Barry. Talking about businesses and succession, they're definitely one of those that I've sort of had interactions and asked those type of questions. But Barry's that guy. He wants to be out there. He wants to know the customers. He wants to be a part of it. And Ryan is trying to figure out, like, we're growing. Like, how do we keep doing what we're doing? And it's interesting. I had that conversation with him last week. The difference of the styles, right? And they're a very interesting dynamic. But yeah, great family, very community focused.
Very, love them.
Love to help out and just rock star people for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of styles, I have done some work for you guys. And whenever I do, Eric's always the one to reach out to me and say, hey, we need this done or whatever. And when you reply, he types in his email, when you reply, please CC Cam, because he likes to know what's going on. And I'm like, God damn, like, how does he give a shit about the little things that I'm doing? Like, how do you keep up with having kind of your finger in every pot of the business?
Have you noticed when you email me, I email you back 1 to 2 days later?
If at all. I don't know if you've ever replied. I think it's just that you want to see. Right?
Yeah, and it's just one of those things, and especially early on in the business, that you're trying to let somebody do the work, but also make sure it's consistent with what you're doing and the bigger picture. So, and maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but it is nice to sort of know what's going on and try to be consistent, right? And
definitely. Oh, I'm not discrediting you. I think that's
for sure.
It's amazing.
But yeah, it's definitely a challenge to keep up with the emails. Email's a curse.
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, I love it because it pays the bills, but it's my business coach always tells me you're not a cat and you don't need to follow the red dot. Like the notification dot is what she's talking about.
Yeah,
she's like, just let them go. They will wait. People will wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I've really pushed over the last couple of years the hierarchy of communication. If you call me and I do not answer, I will call you back immediately because that is important. If you text me, that's a 4 to 6 hour window kind of thing. If you email me, that's a 24-hour thing. And trying to sort of live with those communication guidelines, especially within our team, just to set the real expectation. Like, hey, if you email me, don't walk into my office and ask me if I've read my email.
Right.
Because I haven't.
Or call you.
Yeah.
Like 2 minutes later, did you get my email?
Which sometimes is important. Like, hey, I needed to put this in an email, but I called to make sure that you could see it.
Fair.
So that makes sense. But yeah. So anyways, it's been an interesting thing, and it's time management, right? Like I could sit and answer and read emails and just deal with emails every day, and I get nothing else done.
Mm-hmm.
But you try to chunk it. You try to read through your emails. You take the action items, put them on the to-do list. Try to crush the to-do list, try to monitor the emails. But yeah, I'm unfortunately bad for, sorry, I read your email and then a butterfly flew by and I didn't forget to unread it and now it's lost. But
Right.
now I've discovered it and I'm sorry for not responding.
Yeah.
So I'm unfortunately bad at that.
I've just heard from somebody about setting up rules in Microsoft Outlook so you can filter your emails for repetitive ones, for low priorities,
You
low
should see my
projects.
inbox. I have so many folders and
I've
I
got
have
a ton of
so
folders.
many rules.
I don't have any rules yet. I can't wait to
How do you
take
not
a
have
little-
rules?
Well, see now this you're
Always
just-
move messages from this person into this folder.
So I haven't done that yet, but
That's
next
good.
week I'm going to be doing this, and you just watch me change the world now. 'Cause
Yeah.
now I'm going to have all the time. Apparently,
Absolutely crush it. Yeah. Well, and it's just nice to know that, like, oh, if there's 20 emails in my like daily reports inbox, I don't need to worry about it,
yeah.
right? But then you have, 70 emails unread, which stresses some people out. But
I turn off
No.
notifications. I don't.
yeah, I don't have
look.
email notifications
No.
on my phone. They'll pop up actually now on my iPhone,
Yeah.
so they'll cycle through, but they don't stay. They don't. Well, my inbox just grows, but.
I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could set rules. It has to be in the inbox or else I won't take care of it. Maybe
And do you
Monday.
have all your notifications on?
off.
Off.
On my
Yeah.
phone, they're off, but on my computer, my inbox is in my face on one screen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My design software is the other screen. I don't ever not see them.
We
it's
should just change your password on you one day.
What? Are you trying to give me a heart attack?
yeah, stressful.
No.
Just so you can't get into it for like a weekend and just be fun.
No thanks.
Do that before you go on vacation, at least.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't. This is the thing. It's me. I have a very part-time in-house employee who's once a week for a few hours. And I have a remote employee who's a couple hours a day here and there. So I was just talking to Randy about this morning. Like, if I get COVID and my immune system is compromised, so it could potentially really suck for me, who runs my business while I'm in bed?
That was a lot of stress over the last couple years for sure, was just that whole, if I get COVID and give it to everybody in my office, what is shutting down with no notice look like? And
Ah,
yeah, there's a lot of those, when you're the key person,
that's a lot of weight to
things
carry.
look different. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. And you make different life decisions because of it. And
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely. And I know, and I'm in the same boat as you, and I'm sure Holly, where I no longer run a business for myself. I run it, and my first priority is paying my employees.
yeah.
Every other, my rent bill, any other bill that I have to pay is second priority to those people who work for me.
Yeah, that was another thing my dad always taught me is your money goes to payroll first and everything else can wait.
Yep. And
Yep.
I don't know how any business operates any other way. Maybe there's some out there that isn't the case, but damn, it should be.
Yep.
You wouldn't have a business without those people, most likely, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, shit. That's heavy. Now that I've said that out loud, it's like, damn.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your corporate culture. Do you have stuff in place, like physically, that you've written down or that you've said out loud, like, this is our corporate culture? And because you seem to have a really good culture.
Yeah, again, another one that I've been sort of working at. We have an orientation package and, we've had various forms of regular meetings over the years. And this last 2 years, it's been more emails because it's just not a thing to get everybody together anymore.
Right.
We're actually of the size that we can't really get everybody together.
Yep.
It's a large crowd when you get 30 plus people trying to be in a single area and trying to speak to them all at once. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think, you lead a bit by example, you try to be consistent in what you say. And what I've really tried to do is focus on what I deliver to the project management team who deal day to day with the field team.
Yep.
So you're consistent with them and you hope that message is consistent down. And so when you're out talking to the field staff or the field team and you say something, you hope that, it's not deer in the headlights. So I've never heard that, or, this is shocking. But I don't know. I think this is one that I'm really hard on myself on, where I think our culture could be better and I think I could do more. And, you look at people like Total Restoration who, just go above and beyond, doesn't
Right.
seem to capture the things they do. And I wish I had a full-time person or a whole nother life that I could live to do a lot of those things. So that's one that I face kind of daily battles with on, how can I do more? Are we ensuring that people are having consistent positive experiences, and do people feel engaged, and do people feel like they're part of the family, and are they challenged, are they supported? It's one of those things that I think I spend a lot of time thinking about. I feel like I don't do enough for, but I also think it's one of those things that you could spend your full time dealing with it, working on it, and that would still be an opportunity to do more, right? Like there's not enough, right? You can't do enough to support the people that support you at the end of the day.
Well, and that's what Tracy says, that her boss, Rob, Tracy at Total Restoration. So Rob, the owner, says, I have a Tracy Van Rays for that, right? Like he doesn't deal with, I mean, he does very much is a part of the culture, but Tracy's the one who kind of implements it. And I think for the most part anyway. But I think you might be too hard on yourself, because when I see things like your drivers driving 30 in school zones and playground zones, and I see your young technicians coming to my place of business being the most professional for somebody that age, which is shocking. I have a lot of interaction with Eric. That in itself says a lot about your culture, and the fact that you have these tenured people on your staff that have been around for years. If they weren't happy and they weren't having a good experience at work, they wouldn't stay. So I think you need to pat yourself on the back a little bit. Maybe you haven't thought of it out loud, but it's there.
Oh, and totally thankful for having such, we have very low turnover. We've had a solid group for a very long time, and I'm very thankful for that. They, make things happen that wouldn't be possible without them. But I think that's why I worry so much. And it's like, I gotta, make sure this person's got, a paycheck to put food on his family's table, because that's why he's here. Yeah. He's here so he can go home to his young family to pay his mortgage. And so, I think, I'm hard on myself on a lot of things. And I think this is one that I always will be, because I think it's just because it matters so much. And that, like I said, I don't think you can do enough to, I could probably go around and tell everybody how much I appreciate them. And by the time I get to the end, I need to go right back to the start and start all over again. And, it's one of those challenges, right? Like, and I think that personnel challenge I talked about at the start was one of those bigger, unexpected challenges. And it's not necessarily a negative thing, like dealing with difficult people. It's not that. It's just making sure that you're addressing the needs of every individual that works for you, right? Like, you're not dealing with one person, you're dealing with individuals who are all different, who all see things differently, need different things, are there for different reasons. So you're always just kind of dealing with that balancing act of, am I helping out? Am I, giving resources? Am I, providing enough training? Or, do we need to talk about how to approach people from a customer service perspective and how to ask those simple questions to make sure somebody's happy and to show up on time and to follow the rules of the road when you're driving the billboard down the street. And there's just so many different pieces there that I think it's something that you always need to be working on and always to be forefront of the mind to have on the radar.
And you have so many employees now that you probably don't see them all in a day, right? Or even in a week sometimes?
No, not at all. Some go to job sites directly, so some don't really check through the office. When it's something that I try to make a somewhat regular, which I'm still bad at, getting out to see people because I don't see everybody very often, and trying to make sure that you're kind of connected to, feet on the ground and sort of see what's going on. But you're totally right. Like, I probably see, I would say at least 50% on kind of a daily basis. But we've got guys that live in Kelowna, West Kelowna. They're working in West Kelowna right now. Like, I don't see them unless I'm up there. And so, there's a lot of people that, do their thing and don't see me very often.
Did your the generations before you, did they instill any values in you that you still carry? I mean, besides being community minded and that kind of amazing stuff, is there anything else that you think you've passed on?
I think my dad obviously had a big impact in like work ethic and stuff, but my grandfather always really stands out. I worked a lot with, I worked with him as a kid a bit, going out, helping with his house and yard and sort of doing little things like you do when you're sort of a young boy for your grandparents because, your parents are trying to get rid of you because you're a little boy full of energy.
Labor.
Yeah. So, and, there's a lot and I had this one thing and I don't know if I was doing inventory, but I was at the shop. I was fairly young. I was sitting counting something and my grandpa came up and said, "What are you doing sitting there?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just counting things." He said, "Well, sit the rest of your life, like stand up, move around, like you're working here. You're not sitting and doing nothing." And this, like, again, this random one-off thing, like, resonated with me my whole life. And,
Wow.
I think the bar of, what work ethic is and what hard work really is kind of was all around me my whole life. Like, my dad worked long hours my whole life, and that's kind of was a nice thing to be able to take him out of that job and do it myself for some weird reason. But yeah, I think that work ethic and that hard work and, the job's kind of never done until it's done to the best of your abilities is kind of something that I grew up around or was instilled in sports growing up or something. But it's always just one of those things where, you're never, I had a friend's dad tell me this and it stuck with me. If you're too big to do a small job, you're too small to do a big job.
Love it.
Right? So there's nothing below you. And I try to push that to people. I was not the best apprentice when I was young because I thought it was stupid that I had to, pack the van up when somebody was standing watching me and they're having a smoke and just standing and I'm working. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where it's just like you're not above pushing the broom if that's what needs to be done for everybody to leave. So
Yep.
Obviously, there's roles and responsibilities and places for people to be doing certain things. I get that. But I always felt that, if there's a shovel that needs to be picked up and you need to dig a hole real quick to, get something done, I never hesitate to do that. I always joke, the nicer I dress for work, the earlier I get dirty.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
Is your grandpa still around?
he's not. No, he passed in I think it was 2010. So a while ago now. Yeah, really miss him. He had an unfortunate battle with Alzheimer's and how
Worst.
horrific that is
That
as
is the
a
worst.
disease for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm fortunate to be around a lot of people that knew him and always get stories about him and people say, "Oh yeah, you remind me of him." And
Aw.
yeah, there's a lot of it. There's a family friend that was really close to my grandpa that was in the other day and we were chatting it up and yeah, it's nice. It's nice to kind of have that connection.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
must feel good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
No, I didn't have anything I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I just
I know, on your
came.
sheet.
I came. I brought beers. I plugged Slackwater real quick, and
I see where your priorities are.
yeah, no, this was a casual chat. I thought I didn't need
Oh,
to
definitely.
come
Definitely.
with an agenda. No, happy to be here. Thankful for being offered and having great co-hosts to deal with. And no, it's been fun.
Absolutely. This has been honestly one of my favorite episodes. Like, what an absolute privilege it is to have the two of you sitting across from me, learning all these tidbits,
Timbits.
these tidbits
Tidbits.
of information as a brand new business owner. Right? Like, you guys are very inspirational. Bets, you're killing it.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the support.
Yeah, well, always. Love what you do every day in the community. All the things.
All the things.
Book recommendation.
So right now I'm reading Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which, yeah, a couple people know about it. This one really is like the mental toughness thing as a business owner, especially over the last 2 years. I don't think anybody was as tough mentally as they needed to be. I know I wasn't. I'm still not. Mental toughness has been one of those things that I learned quickly I needed, even just to be able to control your emotions, letting somebody go or dealing with conflict, whether or not it wears on you or how you feel isn't how you necessarily need to be showing at the time you're dealing with it. So yeah, I learned early that mental toughness was a big thing and that I didn't have it or that I needed to work on it. So yeah, I big on the, top 10 books you should read. And this has been on a lot of those lists. So I got it. And honestly, it sat on my shelf for 2 years, actually, I think, until I opened it up. But yeah, I'm trying to do a book a month.
Wow.
This year. And I'm almost done this one. And we're almost at the end of January. So I better get through the last 100 pages here over the weekend. But it's been good. It's an interesting story about, you're the limitation. Limitations are not put on you. You put them on yourself and you can break through them. And no matter what your sort of situation, this guy's got a wild story and
David Goggins is one bad motherfucker.
Yeah. And he repeatedly shows you that through that book. It's just wild what he put himself through. But I think it's all, if you capture the story of, it's not about how insane this guy is. It's the fact that he shows to you that your mindset can get you through whatever you need to deal with. So, I'd recommend it for really anybody. If you're going through challenges or have challenging circumstances or came from a challenging background, those are sort of all points that I think kind of embody what he's trying to put out there in his book. And yeah, I think everybody could grab a good tidbit from that one.
I think I don't read a lot because it bores me, and
Same.
Audiobooks are the same. I fall asleep, but there are a few books that have been mentioned on this podcast where I'm like, yeah, I need to read that, and that's one of them because Joe Rogan's podcast, he talks about David Goggins all the time, and the two of them are friends.
Okay, yeah.
And so I always hear little tidbits about Goggins, and he's very inspirational. So I think I might check that one out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a read, and I'm not a reader either. I've probably read more. It's probably been a bit more than 5 years now, but I read more in 5 years than I did in the 25 years prior.
Wow.
Yeah,
Same.
I never read.
Yeah?
I never
Same.
read at all in high school. University, my excuse was I read textbooks. I don't need to read books.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like I read emails all day at work. I read specs. I don't need to read books. But there's so many interesting things I think you can pull from a book. And like I said, like you don't need to read a book and live, the whole book. But there's something in every book I think that you can take and put in your arsenal and start to make yourself a bit better.
You know what a family member once told me that I thought was super cool? That you should take at least one thing out of a book. You don't have to, like Cam said, you don't have to read the whole book and live by it, but you should take one thing out of it. So what she would always say to me is, put a $5 bill in the book, and if you get nothing else out of it, you got $5 at the end.
Oh,
Love
that's
that.
so cool.
Yeah, love that. Good bookmark
I'd
too.
take it out before.
Yeah.
But that's a really good piece of advice. I wish they could just like make a movie about every book so that I could just watch the movie.
A lot of them are.
Yeah, there's a couple, and I'm can't think of it, but there's a couple services that condense books.
Oh, what?
And
I've seen it too. You see some of the ads on Instagram and stuff where the next time I see it, I'll send it over to you.
Yeah.
But it'll have like a list of the books, and then they've condensed it into the main messages of the book. So you could read like the Highly Effective Habits book.
Yep.
You could read that in like 19 minutes.
Oh, shit. I want that.
Yeah.
I would pay for that service. That's so brilliant.
Yeah, what's it called?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But the next time I see it, I'll
I'll send it to you. There's two. It's like Cliff Notes. It's kind of like a spin on the whole Cliff Notes thing, right? Where it boils it down to what they say in 30 pages. They tell you in two sentences. Or
Wicked.
Yeah.
There's probably people listening to this that are like, oh, it's this. It's called this.
they're
It's
screaming
like
at
I'm freaking out right now.
I do. I have people that message me all the time when we can't think of something, and they're like, "I was yelling at the podcast." Anyway, thank you so much, Holly, for coming being my co-host for the first time. I hope you come back.
I will for sure.
Cam, you want to come be a co-host anytime? We're here.
Yeah, let
And
me know.
thank you very much for coming and sharing your wisdom with everybody. It's been a true pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me and being patient while we worked through the last 4 weeks of trying to schedule this thing or whatever it was.
Well, I'm happy that Holly decided to co-host this one because it's the dynamic here is really awesome. I love it.
For sure.
Just a reminder, hit the donate button if you thought Cam had lots of good tidbits. I know I did. I'm going to donate to my own podcast. It was good. And if you want to check out any of his books, check it out on our website, graphicallyhip.com/hipnation. Thanks for listening and stay hip.